Pecha today is about a few of the issues discussed mainly in the first two chapters. Chapter 1 begins by explaining that one of the reasons our new knowledge culture has arisen is because our older ties to forms of social community are breaking down, specifically ties to our physical geography, bonds to our family, nuclear and extended family, and allegiance to nation states. But in these new forms of community are specifically voluntary and temporary. People may shift between communities whenever they wish or be a member of more than one community at a time. Within these virtual communities, there are usually two types of knowledge: shared knowledge, which is knowledge held by the entire group, and a collective intelligence, which is the sum total of information held individually by all the members. I actually disagree, though, with Jenkins when he talks about family. He says that families are eroding and breaking down, but I think that they are just evolving and embracing these new forms of media and their interactions with each other. One of the first things he mentions about families in the second chapter is about how watching TV, especially these new TV shows that involve audience participation, are actually becoming a sort of family ritual, and that instead of eroding the family, they actually all come together and they watch the show. And he talks about American Idol, but recently I think Dancing with the Stars has become a kind of similar show. And another way, some people are clinging to this idea of family by looking more into their family history. With these new forms of knowledge, they're being able to pull all of their knowledge together and find their family history. And there are 4 sites I immediately found on the internet. The main one, though, that people usually hear about is Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com actually has something cooler, which they have this member connect network, which is you can look for people who are looking for the same ancestors. You can contact them, and together you can form your own little knowledge community to learn about your different family. Another main point Jenkins talks about is that these new knowledge communities are voluntary and temporary. When he's talking about Chill One, he talks about how Chill One may have facilitated the end. And I think that's more because Chill One made the community irrelevant. He saw spoiling more as a goal instead of a process, and many people got angry about that. He came into the whole spoiling community as an expert when the community was much more democratic. It was a process of acquiring the information. It was dynamic, and it was through participation that they kind of reaffirmed the group. But his information made the group irrelevant. He was the only one who had it. He hoarded it. And it really just caused the end of the spoiling community. Jenkins states, though, that it wasn't just Chill One's actions. He affirms that the community would eventually have fallen apart on its own. People will consistently get bored with the current status quo, and they will seek out new avenues to continue their interests and to connect with others. So when I was trying to think of something we are all much more familiar with that had this kind of rise and fall of users, I immediately thought of MySpace. There have been others like Friendster, Dig, Reddit, StumbleUpon that have kind of faded away, but I think MySpace is the one that we're all really familiar with. In fact, when I was looking for articles about it, there were so many entitled The Rise and Fall of MySpace. MySpace was actually at its height only in 2008, which was only 4 years ago. It had more than, I think, 75 million users at that time. But right after its kind of height, Facebook then passed it, and it started to lose users at a huge amount of pace. And since then, MySpace has also tried to kind of reinvent itself. It has tried to see it, a place for friends, and was like a place for music and movies. And even now, it's the new MySpace. It's rebuilt, redesigned, and reinvented. But ever since Facebook passed it, the users have moved on. They've gone bored with MySpace. They spent a few years with it, and they're done with it. And one of the main reasons why I think that MySpace would have fallen, and one of the reasons that many articles cited, was their misuse of ads, which kind of ties into Jenkins' second chapters. These fans were bombarded with ads. They didn't have any loyalty to them. There was no connection going on. MySpace just kind of threw these ads out to their people, and a lot of them weren't appropriate. There were a lot of allegations about pornography and sexual predators. And so MySpace has really fallen to disuse yet. Now, nobody really wants to be on it. In fact, when I was looking in the articles, there was a quote that says, "MySpace, it's done, it's a joke. If you do stuff on MySpace, you just look sad." And I think this kind of, they were more focused on exposure instead of expression. And so when I think about our knowledge communities that we are using today, I'm really curious to see if Facebook and Twitter will kind of undergo what MySpace did. There have been other ones that have kind of broken into social network, but they've been more focused, like Pinterest and LinkedIn. Though Google Plus tried, I don't think it's really succeeded. So I'm really curious to see if Facebook and Twitter are going to fall eventually. One of the last topics that Jenkins talks about that I'm really interested in is this kind of like loyalty of users and actually affecting decisions, to TV programming and advertising. And they kind of talk about how loyals are the ones that they want to have watching TVs, that they pay more attention to advertising, they sit down every week, they are the loyal. Zappers and casuals may get tied into a show, but they could be constantly flipping channels, and that they don't have a higher rate of brand recall like the others. But then if this is the case, then, cult fans should be able to determine what's on TV, and that's not always the case. I remember a show called Jericho, which was back in, I think, like 2006. It was only on for one season, and then it was cut. And though the fans, sent emails, forums, contacted the CEO, they even sent 20 tons of nuts to the office. It didn't really make a decision. It didn't really affect anything. The show was only brought back for a second season, but only 8 episodes before it was canceled once again. And another kind of similar show that underwent this was was the show Firefly. It was canceled, and then fans have been continually trying to get it back, but they've never really been able to bring it back successfully. But what I also thought was curious about these, though, is that even though they didn't ever retain high enough viewership for the companies to quantify the shows, they were actually extended to different medias. Jericho was made into comic books so that fans could continue the story that way. And Firefly was made into a full-length movie called Serenity so that it could kind of tie up the loose ends that the series brought up. And I thought that was kind of cool that these shows extended with the media convergence.